I'm Mia Miller, 28 years old. I was the most out-of-place member of my picture-perfect family in Colorado. While my sister Emma was excelling at Wesleyan University and collecting praise from our parents, I was quietly building a marketing agency from scratch. Tonight was our annual family dinner, one of those classic evenings where my life choices were dissected, where I was judged, dismissed, and belittled. But this time, things were about to change. Right on cue, my phone rang. And years of condescending comments were instantly replaced by stunned silence. Sometimes, life's greatest victories come when you stop trying to impress those who never saw you. That night, my family practically erased me, only to find out, just hours later, that I was worth millions. But before I dive into the full story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Because in just a moment, you'll see how a story of quiet perseverance turned into the most satisfying kind of revenge. I grew up in Cherry Hills Village, Colorado. Spacious homes, lush landscapes, and an ultra-quiet neighborhood. The Miller name carried weight there, thanks to my father, Noah, a strict, no-nonsense investment banker that he measured worth only in money and connections. With a 35-year career at a top investment firm and a massive portfolio, his ability to show affection was inversely proportional. My mother, Amanda, was his perfect counterpart. A college graduate who valued appearances above all else. When introducing us to others, she'd praise my siblings to the skies and subtly diminish me. Then there was William, my older brother by 2 years. The smart, charming, can-do-no-wrong golden boy. By 30, he was working at our father's firm. Right connections, right job, right fiancé, all boxes checked. Emma was 4 years younger than me. The family's princess. She had our mother's beauty and our father's cunning. Her achievements were celebrated at nearly every dinner, and then there was me. The middle child. The one who didn't quite fit. The one who often felt invisible. Even as a kid, I was different. While Emma played with dolls, I was creating posters and videos using early design apps. I was fascinated by how ads were made, but my family. When I spent time on the computer, they labeled me antisocial. One night, my father caught me working on a project and said, "This is kid stuff. When you grow up, you just pay someone to do it." And he added, "Don't waste your time on nonsense. Hire someone, get it done, move on." To my mother, the only thing that mattered was how I looked. "You're a Miller. You should look the part," she'd say. "This screen work you're obsessed with, it'll ruin your skin. You're already pale enough. Just let someone else do it." Not much changed during high school either. I excelled in literature, math, graphic design, and computer science. But my family never came to any of my presentations. Well, they did once, but only by accident, because they had to drop William off at his private golf lesson nearby. That day, my presentation was ranked number 1 out of 20 students. But that weekend, my family was off wine tasting in Napa Valley, while William's golf lesson was celebrated with a full-blown event. My perfect score in brand management was brushed off with a simple, "That's nice." When it came time for college applications, my future had already been drawn out in their minds. First, a prestigious undergrad. Then a master's at Harvard. Then a respectable job. Then marriage. But I applied to Northwestern. To me, advertising wasn't just a job. It was a vision, a form of expression. My dad nearly laughed out loud. "That stuff's not for Millers. We've always been the ones who hire people to do that." I still remember the look on my mom's face, pure panic. "All your friends are going to Princeton or Yale. You really want to go to NYU for advertising?" Then she whispered, almost to herself, "No one in this family has ever majored in advertising." Despite their protests, I went to NYU. I earned a partial scholarship. Even though I knew my parents could have easily paid for the rest, my father insisted it would be a lesson in financial responsibility. While maintaining a 4.0 GPA, I worked part-time jobs all throughout college to AT graduation. The only family member who showed up was my Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister. My parents were in the Hamptons that weekend, celebrating Emma's engagement party. Right after college, I started working at a fashion PR agency in Chicago. My starting salary was average, $65,000, but the fact that William made more than me became a running joke in the family. Whenever my mom talked about me to her friends, she'd say, "Mia's still figuring herself out." But I was soaking up everything, learning every detail, every system. One day, Emma, in her usual smug tone, said, "If I were you, I could never do what you do." But whether the Miller family approved or not, I was going to follow my instincts. Point 2. Years ago, while working in New York, I noticed something that changed everything. Small businesses had no voice. Tight budgets, poor strategies, and outdated agency models left them behind. They were the ones who needed advertising the most, yet had the fewest tools to access it. At the same time, young creative professionals struggled to break into the industry. The talent was there, but the system failed to nurture it. Campaign thinking from the 90s was still calling the shots in the 2020s. Then one night, around 3 a.m., reading a brief in my tiny Williamsburg apartment, the idea for Bold Narrative was born. A digital creative agency that transforms small brands into loud voices. We'd offer content creation, social media strategy, visual campaigns, and bold solutions that deliver maximum impact on micro budgets. An agency that cared less about what you sold, and more about what you stood for. Because every brand has a story, and we'd be the ones to tell it. I took every penny I had saved, from rent leftovers and student loan overpayments, $65,000 total, and I invested it in this dream. It was enough to build a 1-month plan. I worked at my job by day and built Bold Narrative by night. Fueled by coffee and conviction. The first major obstacle hit when I began seeking investment. Some investors initially seemed interested, but they all eventually asked the same question: is there someone handling the creative side of the agency? Like, a male co-founder? One even told me directly, "The advertising world is extremely competitive. It's tough." As if I hadn't spent years studying and analyzing this industry. Another suggested I step back from the CEO role and instead become a project manager. "You're creative," he said, "but investors usually prefer to see decision-making power in a man." After getting rejected by exactly 27 investors, one finally heard me. Leslie Barnes, a former brand consultant and angel investor, offered me $300,000 in seed funding. With that investment, I left my job and built a small but powerful team of 4: Naomi Carter, creative copywriter Elena Cruz, digital strategist Ruby Lin, visual designer Liam Brooks, media buyer, each one an expert in their field, but more importantly, they believed in the vision. Our first office? A coffee shop. We struck a special deal with the owner, and he gave us a tiny space in the back corner. We worked there every night, after midnight. Despite the July heat and lack of air conditioning, the owner installed an AC unit just for us. Because belief is contagious. The turning point came exactly 9 months later. A major edtech brand based in Denver chose us to handle their product launch campaign, and that moment changed everything. The results were staggering. A chart increasing, ad engagement increased by 57%, bar chart, website traffic tripled, globe showing America's brand awareness grew by 39% regionally. Now we had the numbers, real, tangible data that told the story of our vision. Soon, more brands started knocking on our door. Revenue streams strengthened. We moved out of the coffee shop and into our first real office in the Lodo district. Our team grew to 15 people, then came our first major investment, $1.2 million in seed funding. With that support, our agency started gaining national recognition. 1 year later, we secured a $6.8 million Series A round. The agency's valuation? $16 million. Throughout this entire process, I didn't say a single word to my family. They still thought I worked an average corporate job. When they asked where I lived, I'd say, in a small 1-bedroom apartment. But I had already purchased my own place in South Boston. I'd show up to family events in my old Honda Civic, even though I had a BMW 4 Series convertible sitting in the garage, untouched. Just weeks before that unforgettable family dinner, my agency, Bold Narrative, was preparing for a new round of funding, and the irony? The entire process was being led by Noah and Company, the same cutthroat investment firm where my father had worked for decades. Our initial valuation talks started at $100 million. By then, the agency had become Sparkles, a creative force with 112 full-time employees, offices in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, long-term contracts with over 80 brands across the U.S. *Edweek had named me one of our 30 under 30 transforming the advertising world. But I hadn't shown that article to my family, not yet. The night before the family dinner, Elena and I were up until dawn on back-to-back Zoom calls with banks considering major investments. For the dinner, I chose a modest outfit, even though I owned much finer ones. Maybe tonight was the night I'd finally tell them everything. But what I didn't know was, they had a plan of their own. I pulled into the driveway, parked my car, and put my phone on silent. Elena knew to call only for an emergency, everything else would come by text. I stepped out of the car and walked to the door. Before I even rang the bell, it opened. Our housekeeper of 15 years, Elise, greeted me with a warm smile. "Welcome home." I stepped inside, gave myself a quick once-over. "Is everyone here?" "Yes," she replied. I straightened my clothes and walked toward the sound of familiar voices. The room was full of faces I knew all too well. My father stood by the fireplace. My mother was adjusting the table. William was talking to Dad about something important. And Emma, of course, was buried in her phone as usual. My mother looked up, scanned me from head to toe, and said, "You finally made it." I walked over and gave her a hug. "You'll need to move somewhere nearby soon," she added casually. Dad chimed in, "There's our little computer whiz." Then, with that familiar tone, he asked, "Still doing that computer stuff?" "Kind of," I said. "Nothing more?" "Nothing less." Emma brought up her wedding plans to Dad. The rest of the family eagerly joined in. The conversation spiraled into details and more details. I just nodded occasionally. Not yes. Not no. Present, but invisible. Elise came over and announced, "Dinner is served." Everyone stood up and took their seats, glasses clinked in the air. Toasts were exchanged. But no one met anyone's eyes. Then came the roasted duck, served in the center of the table. As we all ate in near silence, my father turned to me. "So, Mia, any progress with your computer work?" His voice carried a hint of mockery. "Why not?" I answered softly. "Lovely." My mother cut in, but her eyes never left Emma's plate. The conversation shifted back to Emma. She was talking about her job, her future. Then Dad paused. He stirred his whiskey slowly and cleared his throat. Everyone went quiet. All eyes turned to him. "Your mother and I have been making some plans," he began. "With Emma starting a new life with her fiancé, it's prompted us to reassess a few things." My mom nodded solemnly, as if this moment had been rehearsed. This was no off-the-cuff announcement. "As you all know," Dad continued, "the Miller name carries weight. And in order to honor it, to carry it into the future, we need to take the right steps." Those kinds of statements always tightened something in my chest. Because they usually came right before a subtle but sharp critique of the different choices I'd made. "William will serve as trustee of our investment portfolio this year," Dad said, beaming at his golden boy. "And we're giving Emma the summer house after the wedding." It's honestly the smartest decision," Emma chimed in, completely unprompted, just to feel like she contributed. Then Dad paused again, pretending to be in thought. He turned to me. "Yes, Mia." I straightened in my seat. "We've decided to cut you off completely." In that moment, it felt like a cold wind had swept through the room. According to my father, annual allowance, gone. Future inheritance, revoked. Access to family vacation homes, forbidden, and all of this was apparently only valid when aligned with decisions the family deems appropriate. Appropriate decisions? "You mean, the ones you approve of?" I asked, my eyes scanning each face at the table. "What exactly do you want from me? To get a job you picked for me? To marry someone you think is suitable?" Suddenly, Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Lower your voice," he barked, his anger, as usual, barely restrained. Are we really supposed to sit here and wait while you mess around with your little computer projects? You're nearly 30, Mia. What you're doing, it's utter nonsense. Nonsense, he repeated, as if testing the word. Emma and Mom nodded in unison. The housekeeper had already started clearing the table. You've never done anything that reflects well on this family, Mom said coldly. Dad gave her a small nod. Of agreement, in that exact moment, my eyes landed on the phone sitting on the table. Elena was calling. Again and again I took a deep breath where I sat. Lifted my head. And with all eyes on me, I finally spoke. All this time, not once did any of you ask, what are you working on? What are you building? Is there anything we can do to help? Not even once. All you ever did was mock me. Told me, pay someone to do that for you. You even said, our driver's kid goes to the same school you did. Like it was nothing. Just then, with the phone still ringing, I picked it up. Emma was still glued to her screen. I answered, Mom. Scoffed under her breath, probably that silly job calling again, but then, Elena's voice rang out, clear and strong. Loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. Mia. I've been trying to reach you. Valor Capital just approved the deal. Silence. Complete stillness in the room. Only Elena's voice echoing through the air. It's official. They're in. $40 million secured. Pre-IPO valuation, $100 million. The team at Noah and Company is already celebrating. For a moment, time stood still. I slowly lifted my head. Met every single stare at the table of pride? Admiration, no. Just shock. Everyone was still trying to process what had just happened. Elena was still on the line. A magazine series wants you on the cover. An agency invited you to give the opening keynote. Their CEO called personally. Thanks, Elena, I said calmly. Let's schedule a full team meeting tomorrow morning. Then, with a measured but pointed tone, my mom asked, why didn't you ever tell us about any of this success? My dad. He was still stuck on the words, $100 million. Like he was doing the math in real time. Wait, this is from that ad thing you were doing, he asked. Bold narrative, I corrected him. They didn't even know the name. Our IPO process is being led by Noah and Company. Then I looked him straight in the eyes and added, your bank, Dad. William jumped in, you're working with Noah? Which team? Isabella Grant's team, I said. My dad's former rival, one of the most respected names in the entire firm. She usually doesn't take on projects like this, my dad muttered. She did for me, I replied, calm, clear, unwavering. Just then, Emma reached for my hand. This is really incredible, she whispered to why. Phone buzzed again, a message from Elena, investor confirmation needed in 3 hours. Tuesday's photo shoot is confirmed. My mom, Emma, and William were still stunned. They just stared at me, trying to reframe everything they thought they knew. Then my dad cleared his throat. Lifted his gaze like he was preparing a statement. So? Things have advanced this far, he said slowly. It seems we may have overlooked a few things. Perhaps, we need to revisit the estate plans. Oh, so now you want to reconsider? He looked away, toward my mother. I instinctively turned to look at her too. I'm still the same person, I said. Same success. Same hard work. The only thing that's changed is that now you finally see me. Your father's just trying to clear up a misunderstanding, my mom offered, gently. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I replied, my voice low, but unwavering. You made yourselves very clear. My choices didn't reflect well on the family. Starting an ad agency wasn't a real job in your eyes. Not prestigious enough. Not meaningful enough. As if someone with the Miller name couldn't possibly choose a path like that. William jumped in, like he always did when things got tense. We were just worried. We thought you felt alone. But, you also never shared any of this with us. Gee, I wonder why, I said, sharp and dry. Emma, true to form, got straight to the money. Didn't even bother hiding it, so, what's the agency worth now? I turned to her. Spoke clearly. Deliberately. Bold Narrative is currently undergoing a funding round at a $100 million pre-money valuation. I own 51% of it. Those familiar calculating looks slowly froze on each of their faces. My dad murmured quietly, that's over 50 million. Right now, yes, I nodded. Post-investment, it's expected to at least double. And next quarter, we're launching our international expansion, first stop, Europe. Asterisk. My mom took my hand. Sweetheart, she said. It was the first time her touch had felt that sincere. But even in that moment, something was missing. A hollow warmth. I gently pulled my hand away. This is such a huge success, for the whole family. For the family? I asked, tilting my head. Just minutes ago, Bold Narrative wasn't irrespectable enough. And now that things are going well, it suddenly becomes your success? My dad shifted in his seat, his voice carrying an unfamiliar tinge of guilt. Maybe we were too quick to judge. Family decisions should be made with all the facts. You already made them, I replied. And this success didn't count to you, because it didn't match your definition of a surreal job. William chimed in again, this time not as a brother, but as a portfolio manager. But the agency world is volatile. High risk, fluctuating valuations. Concern was reasonable. I turned to him. Looked him straight in the eyes. Was it concern, or judgment? Emma wasted no time flipping the conversation to her benefit. Mia, this is honestly thrilling. If we combined your creative vision with Brian's political network, we could launch some amazing public awareness campaigns. Then she turned to our father. Dad, this could open up major opportunities for the family fund too. My father nodded slowly. You could practically see the numbers calculating behind his eyes. Let's talk about how we could structure a potential investment through the family fund. I was reaching the end of my patience. I spoke slowly, but firmly. Stop. The room fell silent. Their faces twisted with mixed emotions, hope, calculation, confusion. I'm not looking for family investment. My voice was clear. I stood my ground. Bold Narrative has secured all the funding it needs. Okay, what about a board seat? William jumped in. The Miller name adds prestige. The board is full. And every seat is occupied by someone who believed in me from day one. My mom looked genuinely shocked. Sweetheart, now that we know where you stand, we just want to support you properly. Now that you know I'm successful? My tone was calm, but the subtext was razor sharp. That's not support. That's self-interest. As I reached the door, a voice called from behind. Mia. I turned. It was Elise, our longtime housekeeper. She gave me a thumbs up, smiled warmly, and disappeared down the hall. Asterisk, this isn't fair, Emma said. We're family. Family supports each other's success. Really? I replied, tilting my head slightly. Then where was that energy, just an hour ago? As usual, my dad pivoted from emotion to logic. What's done is done, Mia. Let's look ahead. The Miller Network could open a lot of doors for your agency. I stood up. I've noticed your sudden interest in my career, I said. But I have to go. I've got a strategy meeting with the London office first thing in the morning. Now, my mom asked, clearly shocked. Sweetheart, we're just getting started. Media exposure, investor planning. Your father's connections in wealth management could be very helpful. I already have a financial advisor, I replied firmly. And a media consultant, legal team, strategist. Everything I need is already in place. But we're your family, my mom insisted, as if those 4 words alone could erase years of dismissal. Yes, you are, I said, taking a deep breath. That's why I kept coming to these dinners, even after being belittled time and time again. Because a part of me always hoped that if I truly succeeded, one day you'd accept me for who I am. My father stood too, his voice carrying that familiar tone of authority. Mia, don't make any rash decisions. Family ties are bigger than momentary hurt. I agree, I said. Which is why I need some space. From now on, I decide what kind of relationship I want with this family. I quietly picked up my bag. Just as I was heading for the door, my phone buzzed. A message from Elena. Financial Times wants to feature you as Advertising Strategist of the Year. We need to confirm by tomorrow morning. I was about to quicken my pace when Emma called after me. Mia. We're having dinner with my fiancé next week. You should come, talk about your work a little? I paused. Turned around, there it was, the grand dining room, filled with faces that had ignored me for years. Now struggling to calculate my worth. I'll check my calendar, I said, polite but clear, and in that moment, I left them behind, to slowly realize how they had just pushed away the most successful member of the Miller family. I got into my car and drove off. From now on, I'll have boundaries. Firm, clear, and non-negotiable. If the only thing they care about is my money or the status I've gained, I won't play that game. But that doesn't mean I have to cut every tie. I'll just stay on the surface. No more diving deep. No more getting hurt. The next morning, I walked into Bold Narrative's Soho office. My team was waiting for me in the glass conference room. They looked up, 35 people. Copywriters, designers, social media experts, project managers. Every one of them had joined me on this journey. I set my bag down on the table and stepped inside. Before we pop the champagne, I said with a slight smile, I'd like to say a few words. What we do here isn't just about building creative campaigns. We tell meaningful stories. We give small brands a voice. And now, that voice isn't just being heard, it's echoing. Alicia handed me a glass of champagne, clinked hers against mine, and said with excitement, to Bold Narrative. And to Mia, the one who saw it all before anyone else did. As the celebration carried on, I quietly stepped back and went to my office. Something was waiting on my desk. A massive flower arrangement, almost the size of a small tree. The card simply read, "We're so proud of our shining daughter. With love, Mom and Dad." As I held the card in my hand, my mind flashed back to 24 hours earlier. The same people, at the same table, trying to cut me out of the family, and now I was suddenly their shining daughter. Just then, my office door creaked open. My assistant peeked in. "Your dad called 3 times, she said. Anne Williams downstairs. Said he was in the area. Should I send him up?" There was a brief silence. Then I nodded slowly. 5 minutes. When William walked in, his eyes scanned the office. The glass walls, the shelves lined with awards, the framed Adweek feature on the wall. "Wow," he said, hands in his pockets. "This place really looks like a top agency. I mean, it's impressive." "So what brings you here, William?" I asked. Not breaking eye contact. "Dad's office is downtown, after all." He smiled, that familiar, overly warm smile. "Can't a guy visit his sister?" His famous creative agency founder's sister. "You've never done it before," I said with a polite smile, but a clear boundary. For a moment, a flicker of regret crossed his face. "About last night," he began, but I cut him off. "If you're here to pitch an investment offer, suggest a partnership, or try to get on the board, don't bother. I'm not interested." He paused for a moment. "Isn't that a bit harsh?" he said. "I mean, we're family." "Exactly," I replied. "I'll grab coffee with you. Maybe see you during the holidays." But no one from the family is getting involved with Bold Narrative. Clear. Calm. Firm. "That's not very strategic," he responded quickly. The Miller name could open doors for this agency. I spent 4 years building this agency, alone, night after night, William. I didn't get a single ounce of help from that name or your connections. And I don't want it now. He tried to pivot, Dad, he regrets what he said last night. Cutting off your expenses, it was meant to motivate you. We really didn't know how successful you were. I looked at him carefully. And what if you still didn't know? What if I was just working with small brands, a salaried social media manager, for example, would I still be left out of the estate plan? Asterisk he couldn't answer, William, I said, gently motioning toward the door. In 10 minutes, I have a meeting with an international brand. With the people who believed in this agency from day one. Unless there's something else? My voice was soft, but firm. All right, he said, trying to compose himself. Dad wants to set up a lunch. To make things right, I'll call when I'm ready, I replied. Then I looked him straight in the eye and added, and William, if you ever genuinely want to know what I do, I'll tell you. But only if you truly want to know. After he left, I turned back to the flower arrangement on my desk. Stared at it in silence for a moment, then I called out to my assistant, send these flowers to the Women's Entrepreneurship Center in the Bronx. They're the ones who truly deserve to be celebrated. In the weeks that followed, my family's attempts to get closer didn't slow down. My mom started calling regularly. Every conversation came with suggestions like, let's highlight your story in the community. As if my life had finally become worthy of being showcased. My dad's lunch invitations now came with subjects like investment, tax strategy, and wealth management. To him, I had finally reached a point worth taking seriously. Emma was more blunt and more transactional. Could we get a donation from Secure Health for Brian's campaign? By the way, should I introduce you to my friend from Harvard? But I gave them all the same response, kind, but with clear boundaries. Asterisk the next day, my assistant came into my office and told me the team wanted to organize a breakfast meeting. I said yes. They deserved it, every bit of it. Because they were the reason I became who I am. The following morning, when I arrived at Bold Narrative's New York office, my team was waiting for me in the glass-walled conference room. There was something in their eyes, belief. Not just in the agency, but in each other. The agency's valuation matters, of course, I began, but real success is giving a voice to the dreams of small brands, and making sure that voice is heard by the world. Alicia walked over, holding a champagne glass. She raised it high to Bold Narrative. And to Mia. For creating space for bold voices when everyone else clung to the same tired advertising cliches. We clinked our glasses together, and in that moment, I was exactly where I belonged, with my real family, the people who believed in this vision, this courage. From the very beginning. Asterisk when I got back to my office, another piece of news was waiting for me. Our agency had just signed deals with 2 major European brands. Our first international expansion had officially begun. As I looked out the window at the city below, I found myself thinking about the past. I remembered that younger girl, the one who dreamed of joining the advertising world, but was told that job's not for girls. Warned by her family, don't waste your time. That 16-year-old version of me, she once asked me, did you ever feel like this too? Constantly, I had told her. But here's the most important thing I've learned, you, and only you, get to define your own success. Not your family. Not society. Not your industry. And once you surround yourself with people who truly see you, the ones who don't, can't hurt you anymore. A year later, in my new home, that elegant apartment I had just moved into in Back Bay, I hosted a small but meaningful celebration. The Bold Narrative team, my creative friends, and the entrepreneurial spirits who'd walked this road with me. I had invited my family too. But my boundaries were clear, stay no longer than 3 hours. If you have questions, they should be about the weather, not my career. Yes, I actually said that. When the moment came to raise our glasses, the room fell silent. I stood up and caught Aline say. She gave me a small nod, a quiet show of support. To real success, I said. Not just measured by revenue or the number of campaigns, but by the impact we make. The work that touches people, brands, and dreams. And the right to define our worth, with or without a last name to back us. That night, I stepped out onto the terrace. The soft wind of the New York evening brushed across my face. A notification lit up on my phone. Bold Narrative had just signed its first creative partnership in Europe. In that moment, I thought again about the young woman who came up to me at a conference. Her family had tried to talk her out of pursuing creative work, telling her it was too risky. That advertising wasn't a serious career. And I had told her success isn't about what others think. It's about what you believe in. And once you find people who truly see you, it no longer matters who doesn't. If this story inspired even one person, then that night at the family dinner, the moment I was told I wasn't successful enough, was actually the moment I began carving out my path, on my own terms, with complete freedom.